In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero.
It's a case that continues to make national headlines. A 26-year-old accused of ambushing and shooting the UnitedHealthcare CEO to death in Manhattan, New York, then vanishing on a bike. A massive manhunt ensued for the shooter, while many on social media cheered on the accused killer as he evaded authorities for about a week. But that changed when the alleged shooter was found a state away, chowing down on a McDonald's breakfast. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is charged with second-degree murder out of New York for the shooting death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. A McDonald's customer in Altoona, Pennsylvania, alerted an employee who called police. When officers arrived to the fast food spot, they questioned the 26-year-old, who police say was acting suspiciously. Police say he handed them a New Jersey ID. One of the officers asked Mangione if he had been to New York recently. That question reportedly made Mangione go quiet and begin to shake. So he offered up his real name after he was told he'd be arrested if he lied about who he was. He was found sitting at a table in the back of the McDonald's, donning a blue medical mask and looking at a laptop with a backpack on the floor near the table. But it was what was found inside Mangione's backpack that is offering up more clues linking him to the deadly shooting. According to police, Mangione had multiple fake IDs, a U.S. passport, $8,000 in cash, and $200 in foreign money. Officials say one of the IDs matched the fake New Jersey ID the suspect used to check into a hostel in Manhattan prior to the shooting. But that wasn't all. Officers found a gun and a suppressor that police say was consistent with the gun used during the shooting. The gun appeared to be a 3D printed ghost gun with a loaded Glock magazine with half a dozen 9mm full metal jacket rounds and one loose 9mm hollow point round, as well as a 3D printed silencer. Police say the gun that was found matches the shell casings found at the crime scene. Police say clothes and a mask consistent with the one the suspect was seen wearing were also recovered. But a 3-page handwritten note that was found is possibly giving investigators more insight into the motive behind the shooting. The note allegedly appeared to show the suspect claiming responsibility. He wrote about the U.S. healthcare system and how lowly it ranked on life expectancy within our country. The note allegedly referred to corporations as mafioso that have gotten too powerful and slammed companies for committing abuse for immense profit. He allegedly wrote, "Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming." Mangione suffered from years of back pain, which he even had to be operated on. In Mangione's alleged note, he wrote he acted alone and said he was self-funded. But intelligence officers also believe Mangione might have been inspired by the Unabomber, as the two notes reflected a similar mindset. Mangione, even in January, left an online review for Ted Kaczynski's manifesto, writing, quote, "It's easy to quickly and thoughtless write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out." Officials have slammed supporters of the suspected killer, saying despite many Americans' frustration with our healthcare, that doesn't excuse cold-blooded murder.
This case is hinged on attention. In fact, the attention in this case and the killing of Brian Thompson was helpful, no doubt, in allowing us to capture this killer, in alerting that individual at McDonald's this morning, and then having that individual contact police. But some attention in this case, especially online, has been deeply disturbing, as some have looked to celebrate instead of condemning this killer. Brian Thompson was a father to two. He was a husband, and he was a friend to many. And yes, he was the CEO of a health insurance company. In America, we do not kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences or express a viewpoint. I understand people have real frustration with our healthcare system, and I have worked to address that throughout my career. But I have no tolerance, nor should anyone, for one man using an illegal ghost gun to murder someone because he thinks his opinion matters most. In a civil society, we are all less safe when ideologues engage in vigilante justice. In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning. The real heroes every day in our society are the women and men who put on uniforms like these and go out in our communities to keep us safe. This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed.
So Luigi was stopped at a McDonald's, and that makes me think of one of our great sponsors that we have here, Upside. You might be asking yourself, what's Upside? Well, it's a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas, groceries, and restaurants. Sometimes I only have time for a quick lunch break, but then there are times I can have a nice sit down at a restaurant, and guess what? I can use Upside for both. Plus, I can use Upside to get cash back when I do. It's really so easy and simple to use and completely free, so why not? This is actual real cash back too. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. So here's what you do. You download the Upside app, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or a credit card and follow the steps on the app and get paid. You can use Upside at places like Chipotle, 7-Eleven, Taco Bell, and so many other places. So why not check it out and see if your favorite spot is on the app? To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on your screen, use our promo code LCNews, and get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Again, that's promo code LCNews for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. After Mangione's arrest, he was slapped with several charges out of Pennsylvania, including forgery, carrying a firearm without a license, tampering with records, possessing instruments of a crime, and false identification to law enforcement. And prosecutors in New York filed charges against him for second-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, 1 count of second-degree criminal possession of a forged instrument, and 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon in the 3rd degree. When it came time for Mangione's extradition hearing, he entered the courthouse in a dramatic fashion.
Oh my God! That's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
But inside the courtroom, he also made an outburst during his hearing. When Mangione's attorneys argued for bail, his lawyer suggested to the judge the face mask that he was wearing and that was found on him were because of COVID fears. Mangione reportedly shouted, "Actually, I bought the mask," before his lawyer told him to keep quiet. But in the end, a Pennsylvania judge ruled to keep Mangione behind bars on no bond. So until he's extradited to New York, he'll remain in a state prison in Huntington. There's still so much we're learning about this case as more details continue to emerge, but let's unpack what we know now with Kyle Schoberg. He's a police sergeant out of Northern California, and he's also the host of the Shots Fired podcast. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, this case continues to really dominate the news cycle. What's your reaction, though, to Luigi Mangione's arrest?
Well, I don't think he was going to be able to hide forever. I mean, I have no doubt that the police were eventually going to locate him and find him. Probably where he was located was, a little strange to certain people. Probably the people that live in that small town didn't expect to find him there. But it was inevitable. Clearly he's not some mastermind criminal, although it is a very strange case given his educational background. I mean, he has a PhD, very intelligent individual. So the whole thing is just weird. There's still so many unanswered questions that, people want to know. I think right now you're seeing some people just fill in some of the gaps with their own assessments and why he may have or may have not, or why he may have done this. But it is strange and it's unique.
Yeah, that's pretty much an understatement, I think, compared when we kind of unpack this case as a whole. And when police found Mangione, who they believe to be the suspect of Brian Thompson's murder, he was found with a backpack, which had a ghost gun, bullets, and a note as well, too. What do you make of everything that was found inside that backpack?
So the fact that he still had all that stuff on him, I mean, that's would be pretty rare. Someone that had committed that type of crime, usually you would want to get rid of some of that stuff and not carry it along with you. So I'm not sure what his frame of mind is on that. The fact that he had a manifesto written on a piece of paper and it was with him in his backpack, who knows what his mental state is. It sounds like he kind of disappeared off the map over the last few months, according to his family. So we don't know what's going on with him. When he appeared in court, he's yelling and screaming. And so there's more going on, I think. And investigators are going to have to talk to him and really dive deep into why he did this. And hopefully he gives an answer.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And you brought up a great point there, too, where my mind went to, if he did allegedly commit this crime, why didn't Mangione ditch the gun? Why keep that on his persons throughout everything? I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of opportunities to toss it if he, again, was the suspect in this case. But my mind just goes back to why not ditch the gun that can tie you to this entire case?
Yeah, that's the golden question, I guess. We're speculating obviously that that firearm was the one used in the crime itself, but if it was, and they will prove or disprove that it was, he's found several states away. Pennsylvania is a very rural state, and especially where he was located, he could have had several opportunities to get rid of that thing, and maybe nobody would have ever found it. So yeah, who knows why he kept it? I don't know if something that he just felt like he needed to hang on to because he had committed this crime, and that was, sometimes these people want to keep that connection to some of their victims or, whatever the case may be. But it's interesting for sure.
And police have also, kind of talked about this heavy, detailed plan as far as kind of leading up to the murder. The suspect allegedly, had taken a bus from, down south, did the shooting in broad daylight or almost broad daylight, I should say. It was the early morning in Midtown Manhattan, which is a very, very busy spot, especially during rush hour. So there was this heavy amount of planning. But then I think also as well, too, because Mangione had allegedly evaded arrest for about a week or so, that he was only found a state away in Pennsylvania. Why don't you, or in your opinion, why do you think he wasn't further away, or why are you even surprised that he was still in this country?
Well, who knows? I mean, maybe he just did not have a follow-up plan for after the fact. I mean, maybe he had his plan leading up to it, but it kind of would appear that he didn't really know what to do after the fact. And so I don't know. I mean, that's how it comes across to me is I think he just didn't know what to do and was trying to probably figure it out from there. Or he just didn't care.
And, when we talk about this case as well, too, we can't help but talk about the defenders of the suspect in this case. And, investigators talk about the motive, that being, the way our healthcare system is run. And some of his defenders have been pretty vocal, especially on social media, about saying, if they saw him, they wouldn't turn him into police. In your opinion, though, do you think that it's possible more people could have just spotted him and just didn't say anything until that one customer went to the employee at McDonald's and was like, hey, I think this is the guy?
I don't know. I think in those types of cases, you see these billboards, you see this stuff all over the news. It's hit mainstream media, and I think the reality is, if you saw someone that may have looked like him, some people are probably like, nah, that's probably not going to be him, and they just aren't going to report it. So the fact that this individual did report this person at McDonald's, I mean, he was even wearing a mask while in the McDonald's, had the wherewithal to say that he looked like him. And then to take it a step further, the officers that went there to, I guess, investigate this call for service did a good job in asking the right questions, and they didn't just dismiss it. It's a small town. Why would he be there? So the whole thing is just strange. But I don't know that somebody would not contact the police if they knew that it was him. One of the big questions I think people are asking is this guy, he's the CEO of this major insurance company. Why did he not have bodyguards or some type of security with him, which probably would have prevented this whole thing from happening in the first place. So I think all those questions still need to be answered.
Yeah, definitely a lot of questions that we still do have to answer for sure. What do you make, though, of just kind of this lore and this folk story in a way that's kind of surrounding this case? Have you ever seen a case like this before where you have a murder suspect who would get so much attention to the point people are even defending him?
Yeah, I think we see it every time we get these high profile murders and they get, broadcast all over the mainstream media. I mean, they do garner a lot of attention. And I think with that, until this thing plays through all the way through a trial, I think it's going to get a lot of media attention, and people are going to be very interested into it. And police are just not saying a whole lot right now. And I mean, that's done obviously with intention. They need to get a hold of him. They need to interview him. And they don't want to release a bunch of information prior to doing that, because only he is going to know certain answers involved in this case if he's suspected of committing this crime.
Yeah. And why do you think, officials didn't charge him with first degree murder as opposed to second degree murder, given this level of planning, he had allegedly done?
So I'm not familiar with the New York laws and how that plays out for them, but I have a feeling that once they do an interview, they gather all their evidence, put everything together, they can always upgrade the charge. And so that'll be up to the district attorney's office to do that. But we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah. And I want to go back to another point you had made earlier in our discussion, just about, Luigi Mangione's background, that being that he had gone to an Ivy League school. He had just graduated in 2020, I believe it was. He's 26 years old. Are you surprised you're seeing this amount of planning from a murder suspect who is still relatively young?
I don't think so. I think he's a very intelligent individual. And I mean, if we go back, I think he actually referenced Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. I mean, people like that have a very high IQ. They're very intelligent. They plan these things out very thorough. And so I'm not surprised that he had all this planned out. I'm really not.
And, as more details are continuing to come out, we're seeing, though, a lot of evidence that it's kind of tying Mangione to this shooting. We now have the fingerprint that was found at the scene matching Mangione. You have all the evidence that was found inside his backpack. Then you have these like kind of dramatic moments as well, too, of him like getting out of the police car, going into that courthouse, yelling what he had yelled, as well as what he allegedly had said inside that courtroom as well, too. Sierra Gillespie was inside that courtroom, and there was like a moment of an outburst made, especially when they were talking about the contents found in his backpack. But what are your thoughts just overall, just about kind of Mangione's antics in a way after his arrest?
Yeah, look, I don't know what kind of mental state he's in. I think we've seen this before with individuals with his level of intelligence committing these types of crimes. I think his defense attorney may go that angle and say, maybe he's mentally incompetent to stand trial, but who knows? I mean, that hasn't been brought up yet. I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to probably evaluate him, and again, I think it's going to come down to an interview with him.
And I'm sure that interview will be very highly anticipated as people and, especially authorities probably want to learn more and get to know more about this case as well, too. And I'm sure there's still much more that we'll see as this case continues to unfold. Kyle, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Before we sign you
Yeah.
off, though, where does the case go from here?
Well, so they're going to have to extradite him back to New York. Once he's back in New York, investigators are going to have their shot at conducting an interview with him. And then from there, they're going to file the appropriate charges necessary, and then he'll have his day in court.
All right. Well, Kyle, again, thank you so much for joining me today to unpack this and discuss this case with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
While Luigi Mangione is contesting extradition, the clock is ticking. The state of Pennsylvania has 30 days to get a warrant from New York Governor Kathy Hochul to start the extradition process. But she has publicly stated she will sign off on that warrant. Mangione's attorney told reporters yesterday in a press conference that his client is innocent. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.